Good evening. Tonight we have a finance subcommittee meeting of the Brockton School Committee. We'll go ahead and get the meeting started. First, let me read the statement regarding the open meeting law rules. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to the order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This finance subcommittee meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website at www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 12. The public can also access this meeting via the link www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Before we get into the agenda for the evening, I will do a roll call vote to operate under the rules of the revised open meeting law. The chair, Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
And vice chair, myself, I'm yes. Ms. Asak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Minichiello?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez? All right. I see. Okay, he's just connecting and we'll come back to Tony. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
All right. All right. And Mr. Rodriguez? Tony, you there?
Yeah.
All right. We're just taking the calling the roll to meet under revised open meeting law. Are you a yay or a nay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yay.
thank you. All right. And finally, I need to do a roll call to establish a quorum. So we'll start with the chair, Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. Vice Chair, I'm a yes. Ms. Asak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minichiello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So a quick review of the agenda for the evening, and then we'll turn the time over to either the superintendent or Mr. Petronio. So this evening, we are first going to review and discuss an early retirement incentive. Then we will move into the FY 2020 budget, followed by the FY 2021 budget, and then we'll hear any new business that needs to come before this finance subcommittee. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to take it from there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We were asked last time to explore early retirement incentive for certified and non-certified employees. We've done this in the past if we were expecting budget issues, which as we know at this time, we really don't have a number from the state. And I know that, Mayor Sullivan, Aldo, Troy Clarkson have been working hard with our local delegation to try to get some information about where our Chapter 70 number could be for FY21, but it's, as you know, it's unexpected at this time. And then we've all read about the budget woes from the loss of revenue, not only on the state side, but also on the city side. So, just to anticipate that and coming close to the end of the school year, we've offered this before when we've had, if we thought we were going to have budget shortfalls. This has been done. I think we did it about 4 straight years. So Aldo put together some information for you, so you could think about offering this again. And obviously this would, obviously get people that are up on the higher steps, if they are interested in retiring, to retire, an incentive to retire, and also if you were going to replace them, you would obviously replace them with people with less years of service, where you would get some money and some savings there. So I'll let Aldo present the information that he came up with.
Thank you. So what I basically did was I went and just ran a report of all our employees and looked at anyone that's retirement age eligible. So out of that came about between 200 and 300 names. And you don't know anyone's personal situation, you know, how many years they have in the system, but I just looked at anyone that was, you know, of retirement age. So looking at that and then going through what we've done in the past, the last time we offered this was the end of FY17. So what we offered at the time was $25,000 to certified, $20,000 to administrative assistants, $20,000 custodians, $15,000 MTAs, $14,000 paras, and had the non-union as negotiable, something that the superintendent would negotiate. So since we're so close to June 30th at this point, and looking at that, I basically come out with a proposal, figuring out how much money I had. I said we'd do certified figure and a non-certified figure, just to break it into two separate groups. So rather than have $1,000 difference or, you know, $5,000 difference between certain areas, I just did it break two ways. With this short of a notice, you know, we're not going to have time to really, you know, meet with people and talk them into a situation they may or may not want. So that's why I come up with those two figures you have in front of you.
So Aldo, how many, up to how many for each, for non-certified and certified?
I figure we could go to 15 or 20 on the certified and probably close to that on the non-certified. Usually we get about 10% back of what, you know, of those that are eligible. So it would bring us roughly around $500,000 paid out in incentives. And I really don't have much more than that at this point that I can identify that's available. And we would also prepare the contract to say that if the state offers something, that you either choose one or the other. You can't get both. You can't get it from us and can't get it from the state. I've heard rumors they're kicking it around, maybe for June, maybe for next January, but we're looking at June right now so we can save ourselves on the budget.
Okay. And you mentioned in the past for non-union, that's been negotiated. Did you have any money to do anything there, or do we want to not go there at this point?
I think that's something maybe leave at the superintendent's discretion, because the idea here is if someone's retiring, you don't really replace them. So
Right.
Most of the non-union are in, you know, certain key positions that would probably have to be replaced. So again, that would be up to the superintendent if maybe he wanted to go a year without a position being filled. So I figure we kind of leave that open.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to do anything there. So we basically need somebody to make a motion on the non-cert and the cert if we wanted to move forward with this. Is there any comment from the members of the committee on this topic?
If I could, Mr. Vice Chairman,
Sure.
I just want to let you know, so Aldo and the superintendent and Troy Clarkson, who's the CFO, and myself, we met again today. We're on a call every single Tuesday at 2 o'clock, as I've shared with the state delegation. I will tell you that the budget deficit is going to be real, and it's going to have some strong, long-lasting negative impact on the city of Brockton, both on the city side and school side. So this is just a mechanism, and I want to thank Aldo and the superintendent for thinking outside the box, another tool in the toolbox for us to contemplate. But again, we're not getting any quite clarity out of Beacon Hill, out of the State House. If it is, as I've said, if it is going to be 20% on local aid, which is your lottery funds, the UGGA, and also Chapter 70, again, that's up to $40 million. And again, if it was decreased even 10%, it's $20 million bucks. So we really have to figure out from the school side, school committee, city council, once the budget's submitted on how we're going to do this. But at the end of the day, it is what we're faced with, and we need to figure out best practices as we move forward. I do want to let you know that the conversation I had with the governor, he did not rule out offering some type of early retirement incentive, but the Speaker of the House and the Senate President didn't necessarily share that same view. So just wanted to pass that on.
Any other comment from members of the committee? Okay. Seeing none, I mean, I think in order to do this, are we ready to entertain any kind of a motion? We would need a motion for this.
A motion to
I make a
offer.
motion.
Go ahead. Mr. Sullivan gonna
Go ahead,
offer.
Tom, sorry.
Oh, no problem, Sully.
Yeah.
Make a motion to offer certified staff up to 20 staff members, $15,000 for an early retirement incentive. And with regard to non-certified staff, $10,000 for up to 15 staff members. Is there a reason why we're not recommending the same number in terms of the number of people? I know the amount is different, but
Well, the way we've done it in the past is if we get a large response, we come back to the school committee and say, would you like to increase that? And as time goes, I know better what funds we have available at the end of our budget. Right now, I've got all the bills coming in and I'm tying everything out. And at the same time, I was gonna go over my report, but I'm trying to clear any grant that'll pick up any of our costs, equipment, supplies, anything, I'm trying to shift to make funds available. So
okay. So as long as you're comfortable with those numbers, then I'll make that motion, Aldo.
I am, yes.
So motion made.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, motion made and properly seconded. All in favor? Oh, I got to do a roll call. Sorry,
aye.
old habits. Hang on. Old habits. All right, sorry about that. Retirement incentive. Okay. I'll take a roll call vote on the retirement incentive motion. The chair, Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Vice Chair, yes. Ms. Azak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Minichiello,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
yes,
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes,
Okay, motion carries unanimous. Next item, is there anything else on the retirement incentive then? Okay, all right, let's move on to the FY 2020 budget.
So Aldo, if you can give us an update on FY 2020, and also I'll ask the mayor also to jump in. I know that you and Troy and the mayor are working closely with the Plymouth County Commissioners, which could, obviously go into use this year's reimbursement for FY 20 for the COVID-19 expenses, but also what that would do for us into next year. As you know, the Plymouth County has the $90 million from the CARES Act. So I want Aldo to not only give us an update where we are with FY 2020, but also if the mayor and Aldo could update us on the COVID-19 and the CARES Act, the $90 million that the Plymouth County Commissioners have.
Troy received this packet from the, I guess the website would have the packet from the Plymouth County Commissioners. It's called PlymouthCountyCares.com. So in that packet is all the instructions, all the forms we need to fill out, and they'll begin reimbursing us. What changed from a month or two ago when they started this to now is that it has to be COVID-related expenses. So I've kept track of all of our payroll expenses that are COVID-related, all of our printing, copying, computers, everything. So I'm now putting that all together for submission. I'll give it to Troy and then he'll submit the city side as well. Those funds, if they're approved, will be reimbursed, and the city's going to put them in a special account, that houses those funds, and it's up to the mayor's discretion how they'll be used. So I'm pretty confident I can come up with, if they'll accept all our laptops and computers, we'll come up with a pretty good amount of money that will ask them to reimburse us. So that's just starting. There's 4 submission dates over the next about 7 weeks. So in that period of time, I'm going to give them everything we've actually paid. I'm going to give them projections of what we intend to buy or pay for, to basically reserve our portion of the funds. It's been divided equally amongst all the communities in Plymouth County by population. So I don't know if there's going to be adjustments made or if people don't spend all their share, how it's going to be used by the county, but at least we know that that's money we can now start applying for. I'm still working on, again, tying out our budget. I've been asking everyone to get me every invoice they have or any invoice they know might be coming, getting those invoices processed and paid. I'm looking for anything that we can charge back to grants. If a grant can pick up expenses for us, rather than return grant funds, we do that to free up money in our local budget. So after speaking with the mayor, CFO, and Superintendent Thomas, I'm going to reach out to the transportation vendors and discuss they've been billing us for the full amount, but we're going to discuss something that maybe gives them some funding, but does not pay for their drivers. So that's something we want to get done by June 30th. We'll meet with each company individually and hear their concerns and their needs. And I'll do the best I can with trying to negotiate something. I'll bring it to the superintendent and say, here's what we have. And I assume he'll bring it to the committee to see what we can do between now and June 30th. Chris, my accountant, is working on every grant we have. There are some grants that will return funds because we can't spend them. If they were for personal services and the services weren't performed, the money's being returned. There's no way to shift it. Grants that have allowed shifting of funds, we've had grant directors asked to shift it to supplies and materials. We've been trying to buy laptops. I think the Adult Learning Center bought $44,000 worth of laptops this week. So we're working that through all the grants. Anything we can get. Laptops is an easy buy. They're on state contract and we need them. So that's something we've been pushing heavily. Any funds that I do have left over at the end of the year, I am going to what we call charge back to the circuit breaker account. Every year we get a couple $1 million in circuit breaker. That's from the prior year. You can carry those funds for 1 year without spending them. Every year we spend every penny of it. But what I'll do now is anything we've got left over in the budget, I will move into that account. So we'll have it to help us with next year's expenses, especially any special education expenses that occur next year. That's what we use to offset. That's it for FY20. So we're working diligently on that, trying to get it tied out.
Could I ask a quick question about, so we've been, obviously, a lot of us saw the CDC guidelines for reopening schools. We do not have guidelines yet from the state, but Aldo, too, by the guidelines we're seeing from the CDC and about taking kids' temperatures, alterations we might have to make to the buildings. Is any of those expenses being able to be picked up by this CARES money?
Well, the way it works is we have to expend the money. We'll pay it out of our own funds. Then we submit our invoices to them. They reimburse us. So yes, anything like that will be. We've all the PP&E equipment we're looking to buy, we're basically generating purchase orders. We're buying it. Then those are automatically going to go on my list and go back. Those are what I consider the easy reimbursable items for the CARES Act, because we wouldn't buy them on a normal course of business. We wouldn't be buying those masks and those thermometers, and that's very easy. So right now I've told Linda Cahill to basically look and let me know whatever she needs. So I know the thermometer is a little bit expensive. I know, speaking with Ken Thompson, the fumigating machines, we've bought 30 of them, I think. They're about $700-800 a piece. So there's one at every school. I told them today to look for a second one, because we can't have a situation where one goes down and we don't have another one. So look for a second one. But those are all items I'm going to submit to the county to be reimbursed on.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Vice Chairman, if I could just also give a little information
Please.
before we have questions. First of all, let me just give you a status update on COVID, which I should have done at the beginning. We lost another resident today. We're up to 232 loss of life, 232 deaths. We have 1,653 Brockton residents are currently dealing with positive active cases. And then we're a little shy of 4,000 total cases since it was calculated, 3,962 cases. right now. I will tell you that on March 13th, when I declared my local emergency, I made it clear to all the department heads on my weekly call, and Dr. Jim Cobbs is always on that call, and I thank him very much. Every penny that we spend relative to COVID will be sought for reimbursement. I can't tell you that we'll get dollar for dollar. I will tell you that on the city side and school side, much like Aldo just said, there's a separate calculation and a ledger relative to dollars that are already being expended for any COVID-related relief. So I do have a planned call with the Lieutenant Governor this week with Troy Clarkson, the CFO for the city of Brockton. Again, I just want to reiterate that my original intent was to have the money assigned from the county to the Commonwealth. That didn't happen. And, you know, as CEO of the city of Brockton, by being mayor, I'm going to make sure every stinking penny that we're entitled to will get. And I've been on a lot of Zoom calls with the county commissioners. And I want to just thank Aldo and Mike for their efforts, because at the end of the day, every dollar, and those guns, those disinfecting guns are $800, because I just authorized some the other day for the city hall. But every penny we're going to spend, they have $90 million. There is a process in place. If the money is not spent on December 30th, it goes back to the feds, and we don't want it to go back to the feds. What they have calculated based upon a population, and that's why our population for the federal census, we got to get it right this time, and we really do. But right now they have us round one about $4 million. And I'm not sure if we'll get to that or not in terms of what we've already spent. They will not allow us to guess future expenses. It has to be hard dollars with hard invoices. And they're using an outside accountant firm to assist on that matter. So, you know, on the city side, the auditor has already had a separate code, which is specific to, and I know the schools are doing the same, specific to COVID expenses. So that's where we stand on that. And I'll report back next week on what the Lieutenant Governor tells me.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, for the update. Any other, Mr. Sullivan, please?
Yeah. One question for Aldo. Aldo, I know you mentioned before there was 6,500 laptops given out.
Yes.
Are you not expecting those to come back?
Not that I'm not expecting those to come back, but if we have to be prepared for remote learning, you know, then we probably need to leave them in the hands of the students. And I'm going to ask the county to buy us 8,000 more. So that basically we can have one assigned to every student in the district. And let's say, God forbid, you had a COVID case in a school and you wanted to shut the school down for 2 weeks. Every student could stay home. Every student would have a laptop. So that's going to be the argument I'm going to make in asking them to pay for those laptops.
Good idea. Nice move.
Mr. Sullivan,
Thank you.
if I could, Mr. Vice Chairman, I think a couple other variables. Of
Please.
course, there's going to be a statistical number that are damaged, right? That we probably wouldn't want back over time. They'll be broken. I mean, that would just happen. But also, we would need to consider if we would want to take them back based upon what it would take to disinfect, because they're in households that could, in fact, be hot houses. We don't know that. So I support what Aldo's trying to do. The more we can get from that CARES Act, we need to reap the benefits to help the boys and girls in the classroom. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, what you're doing, Aldo, and hopefully they'll fund that, because, you know, I think there's the potential for a need. And like the mayor said, we may not get all those back. We may not want all of those back,
Right.
you know, as well, for various different reasons. Any other comment or question from the members of the committee on this? All right, we're good on the FY 2020 budget. All right, then we'll continue on to FY 2021. Superintendent Thomas?
So again, we're waiting on budget numbers, and I know that we have to obviously get moving on this because we do have to submit a budget to the city council pretty next Tuesday night. So the mayor and I and Aldo and Troy are working together. Obviously, we'll have a finance committee meeting next Tuesday night to talk about what that FY 21 number is going to start at. But again, we have no information. We have no Chapter 70 number. We've been holding out hope that we would get a Chapter 70 number soon. Again, with the work with Kim Gibson, the BEA, holding off the RIF notice date to June 12th, which was huge. And But as we get closer to June 12th and we do not have a Chapter 70 number from the state, we actually have no number from the state, city side local aid or Chapter 70 number at all. So basically we're flying blind, and we're trying to figure out, where this is going to go. And again, we've heard everything from, 5 to 10 to 20% cut but again, we have no idea. And we're hoping to get something soon, but we right now don't have an indication on when that number is going to come out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, we have to play it by ear hopefully this week we'll get some information that we can work with. And then, as you said, we're flying blind right now. Hopefully we're able to get some information to help us have a little bit of direction in the not too distant future. Any comment from anybody, question from any member of the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we'll continue on. Is there any new business that needs to come before the Finance Subcommittee this evening? Mr. Superintendent Thomas, please.
So I just wanted this committee to consider, as you know, North is scheduled to close. They have 8th graders there. Well, they had 8th graders there now. There are 8th graders assigned to North. Our plan through the facilities master plan that was funded from the city to actually look at our facilities and put a plan in place to actually take older buildings offline, fix them, and then, kind of keep doing this over a 10 to 20 year facilities master plan. Unfortunately, obviously with the budget numbers, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to bond the money needed to do a full renovation of North. So looking at the numbers with North staying closed last year, and again, in a normal year, we would have been able to absorb these numbers at the other middle schools. But these numbers are now very high. So I would like the committee to consider leaving North open next year. Again, planning for social distancing. Obviously, the limited number of kids that we probably not going to have on buses, they're going to limit how many kids we can put on buses. So I would consider allowing a 6th grade, obviously the kids that live in the neighborhood. We ran some numbers. There's 235 6th graders that live within 2 miles of North. If we had to send those, which we were planning to do, if we had to send those students to the other middle schools, 185 of them would be on buses. So that's 5 buses, which could be 10 buses if they limit us to only 15 or 20 kids on a bus. But by keeping North open and pretty much phasing it back in the way we phased it out, 1 grade at a time, I just think because of the building was not being closed because there was an issue there. The building was being closed so we could do, renovation. It's a building that was built in 1951. It does have a new roof. It does have new boilers. They're about 10 years old, but obviously it's needed a lot of cosmetic work. But if we consider putting the 6th grade back there next year, obviously it would save about 5 to 7 buses. And it would space out more kids at the other middle schools. And I just think with a full building staying closed, knowing that we're going to have to move towards social distancing, which we're listening to from the CDC guidelines, I don't believe that the state guidelines are going to be much different than that. Then, I just don't think it's wise of us to leave a full building empty. But again, I just think we should phase it back in, because it would be very disruptive to pretty much put it back as a full building, because it's too late in the year. There's too many moving parts. And again, these kids, these 5th graders coming into 6th grade, and obviously would be back to a neighborhood school. And then we would be able to go in with our own craftsmen and do some of the cosmetic work, paint, ceilings, carpet, flooring, just to obviously make it look a lot better than it looks now. And that could all be done in-house. So it's just something for the committee to consider. And again, this is planning for the social distancing, what school's going to look like in September.
Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. the superintendent brought this to my attention yesterday, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. It's creative. It's meeting the social distance and physical distance standards. It's also a building, quite honestly, that we can utilize for sixth grades. It would not be long-term is our hope, right? Our hope is to be able to buy us, a year, and then we have to reevaluate that time. So when Mike brought it to my attention, I set up a meeting with the ward counselor, who happens to be the city council president, Shirley Azak. And Mike and I had a late afternoon call yesterday with the council president. She supports this endeavor as well. I think it makes sense for many, many reasons: health, safety, financial, and really the transportation issue is going to be a strong issue that we're all going to have to deal with and try to figure out together. So I just want to let you know that I do want to thank Mike for thinking outside the box on this one. I think it's really a no-brainer, quite honestly. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to agree with the mayor. It makes sense. We're going to have to, again, deal with social distancing concerns, busing concerns. And I think, the renovation that we had hoped to do is going to be delayed, hopefully short term, but it's certainly delayed. So might as well get some use out of this building. So I think this makes a ton of sense. I believe, Mr. Sullivan, I saw your hand.
Yes,
Sullivan? Yeah, please.
I just wanted to say, I spoke with the superintendent yesterday in support the motion. I mean, the opening up of North Junior High 100%. And at this time, I would like to make a motion. The motion is that we open up North Junior High for the sixth graders this year and then reevaluate next year.
All right, there's the motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Ms. Asak?
Thank you. Actually, I had a moment to get some info on this as well. And not only will this help us with class sizes, which is a major issue right now, especially within that grade, but the busing. So this pretty much helps with both. So and definitely this is a no-brainer, especially when we need to focus on those two major elements, class size and busing. So definitely. So are we voting on this tonight, or?
Well, there is a motion on the table.
It would be a vote to move it to the full school committee meeting next week, obviously.
Okay.
And at that time, what I can do is this Friday, I can give you all the numbers of what the middle schools would have looked like if we kept it closed, and what the new numbers at the middle school open, allowing those 235 sixth graders that won't be going to the other middle schools, and what the new numbers will look like. So I can have parent information run those numbers, so you can see the difference of how many less kids will be at the other middle schools. And again, it's something that we planned for 3 years, but nobody planned for a pandemic. So, we all wanted to renovate the building and do this facilities master plan, but obviously things have changed. And again, just needing the space, which is important. And I just want to make it clear that this would not affect the community center. Obviously, the community center is closed because of, the pandemic, but the community center would still stay active once they're able to start again, because we'd be using the same classrooms that the current eighth graders are using. So the classrooms at the community center are using are still being used. And, so basically we could go in this summer, renovate the classes that will be used for the sixth graders. And then throughout next year, if we look like we're going to leave North open and continue to add a sixth grade back every year, then obviously we can go through and renovate those other classrooms throughout the next year. So, and again, this is all in-house. But again, I know that this is something that is important. I know it's important to Mr. Sullivan, who, he spent a lot of time, listening about North being closed 3 years ago. And it was a tough thing. It was a tough decision to make at the time. But I think that the school committee and the city council, really had good plans of a solid facilities master plan to really start renovating these buildings that were built in the 50s and pretty much bring them, up to the 21st century. So, it was a good plan at the time, but none of us planned for a pandemic. So I just think it's, again, like everybody else has said, it's just doesn't make much sense to leave a complete building closed when we have to plan for social distancing.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was a great plan, but again, lack of a crystal ball to have predicted this. So, Ms. Asak?
I was just gonna say, it's a temporary. This is only gonna be temporary. Hopefully we can get back to our original master plan. So when you give us our numbers, because I know myself, we get a lot of the students that come from north that go to Ashfield and East. So you'll be able to give us some of those numbers, just so we know that those classes are not going to be as congested.
Yeah, I'll definitely send them numbers on Friday. So basically I'll give you what it would have looked like if we kept North closed and how those numbers would have looked at all those other middle schools, and then how much those numbers are going to come down with North opening for the 6th grade. I'll send you both.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
put those in Friday's packet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you again. We appreciate you finding a little bit of a solution to help us.
We're gonna have to be pretty creative going forward for at least the next year. So, I appreciate the out of the box thinking from the superintendent on this. Any other discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Mrs. Sullivan?
I just wanted to ask the superintendent, how do we stand with the renovations or to the Brockton High?
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan, for asking that. So Dr. Cobbs can jump in because he did a great job filling out the application for Brockton High School. I believe that was due on May 8th. They extended, it was supposed to be due on April 14th. And then obviously the pandemic extended the application process. I believe Dr. Cobbs, he definitely, I got the confirmation. The mayor, myself, and Mr. DiAugustino signed off on the application that went into the MSBA. Jim, if you want to jump in, I think it was May 8th that we submitted it.
Yeah, it was due May 8th. We submitted it a little bit early, about a week earlier than it was actually due. So we will probably hear something. It typically takes until, what was it, October last time when they gave us a decision on the North Middle School?
Yeah, they usually come out sometime in October, and they actually will send a large team from the MSBA. They're probably going to be a little bit behind, so I don't expect them to come out. Probably, I would expect them to be out sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas. They'll send out a large team to actually walk through Brockton High School, evaluate it. I mean, obviously, they're going to see that, it obviously is in need of a renovation. And then obviously they would take into, then they would probably you usually get a decision around November. I'm guessing it might be a little bit later, it could be into December or January. And then if we're accepted into the core program, it's called, they would obviously come back to the city and they would actually ask the city to enter into the second phase, which would be the feasibility study. And at that time would obviously come back to the school committee, the city council, put a price tag on what the feasibility study would cost. That's reimbursable by 80% of for the MSBA. So again, there's a lot of steps in this process. Step number one was to get the application in, then the evaluation of the building, which will be done by a walkthrough, probably in November, and we'll probably get a decision sometime, I would guess January, because it seems to be that they're about 2 months behind their normal schedule.
Thank you very much.
If anybody would like
You're
either electronic copy of the SOI or a hard copy, I can get the copies printed or send it to you electronically, whichever way you like it.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Cobbs.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else on this matter before we move forward? We have a motion on the floor, and if there's no further discussion, we do need a second.
Second.
All right, and so we have a motion to keep North Junior High open for 6th graders for the upcoming school year, and properly seconded by Ms. Asak, and I will call the roll. The chair, Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Vice Chair, yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minichiello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Any other items to come before the Finance Subcommittee under new business? Mr. Sullivan.
I'd like to thank Superintendent Michael Thomas for really thinking outside of the box on this North Junior High. It's just really, really thinking outside the box. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sullivan. Again, I appreciate everybody's input. And again, this is something we're planning for pretty much the unknown, what September is going to look like. So I just think we need to this helps us keep all our options open and helps us obviously with spacing. And that's
Right.
in busing, which like Ms. Azak said is very important because none of us know exactly what this is going to look. We're planning for everything, but none of us know what September is going to look like. So this just opens up a whole other option, which I think is very important. So thank you.
Members of the committee, just wanted to give you some information about North. As you know, back in April, we set up North Gymnasium with 20 cots, one on one end, one on the other. It was going to be used as a potential isolation location for any city employee that was unable to go home if he or she tested positive. I'm happy to say that we still have it set up. We've never had to utilize that. So at some point, once the numbers start to decrease, we'll take that down and it will be cleaned. No one's ever been in there with COVID to my knowledge, and definitely not anybody that was utilized from the city. So just wanted to let you know, because I know the council president inquired and I think Mr. Sullivan was going to inquire as well. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Anything else under new business? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn by Mr. Sullivan, second
Second?
by Mrs. Sullivan, was that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to do a roll call. So motion to adjourn, Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Vice Chair, yes. Miss Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minichiello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, folks, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time this evening.